Welcome back, chums. It's been a while since I made the video, mostly to being on vacation and just in general taking a break. But there has been a lot of CDPR related news, especially about Cyberpunk 2077, that I wanted to cover for some time now. First on the list is the recent collaboration between Embody, Immersive Gamepack and Cyberpunk 2077 that introduces Immerse spatial audio in the game, improving directions from where the audio comes from, including how that sound travels around obstacles and its position, along with head tracking and really getting into these specific sound options by selecting which headset you're using and in general increasing the immersion by giving you a more realistic audio experience. Here is actually how it sounds in action.
Honey, you gotta tell me how you got to be you.
Now keep in mind that this is not a DLC or a patch feature per se, but rather a collaboration with a third-party company, which means that this enjoyment will cost you $20. Well, there is a 14-day trial period where you can use this to see if you will enjoy it to the point of paying or not. Now on the audio side, there is no mistake. I mean, this is done really well. You can hear, especially like for example the engine once you're in the car. You can hear all of the sounds from the city as you're just walking through Night City itself. When it comes to combat and gunfights, it's also well done on that end. I mean, if you're really going for a great sound, especially sound design itself, I mean, I think this is going to be worth the price. But again, it comes down to person, how much do they appreciate sound, and if they're happy with the sound which you already have in the game, which I already think is really well done. But I don't mind the original game sound mix anyway. But if you really like precise immersive audio, then I'm sure there is going to be an audience for this, because well, at the end of the day, a lot of people do enjoy having very good immersive sounds and they're actually willing to pay money for it. To be honest, anything in audio costs money, like even more sometimes than just, doing a video production. You do audio production, that's gonna set you back. Now speaking of patches, as I reported in the previous video, there is an internal QA branch that I said we should wait and see if it's connected to this collaboration, but it seems it's not, because it's still there, updated 11 days ago. Again, we can't know from this what is it going to be or how big, the patch is going to be, if it's, going to be just a hotfix for all we know. But a lot of people are expecting FSR 3 to be officially implemented, but what will happen to it, we shall see how it plays out. In other CDPR news, a while back we also had another RedStreams. This one was oriented towards music and audio, and their composers including Marcin, Adamczyk and Jacek. They went more into detail about the process of creating an OST, especially how they adapted the style to be able to shape the music in the game, which is not easy, being that you are a huge part of the atmosphere, from the background music that raises tension, relaxes, to in-your-face tracks and so on and so on.
It took us 9 months, so almost a year, back in 2019, no, 2018, 17 maybe. I don't remember actually, I'm old. But it took us almost over 9 months to actually figure out how Cyberpunk as our second IP in general should sound, and how does it sit among other representatives of let's call it cyberpunk genre in movies, video games, soundtracks, TV series and whatnot.
I really recommend watching this if you haven't already, and along with that there was also a music album cover challenge where people can, show how they would design the cover and win a vinyl signed by the CDPR composers in the future. Now the actual challenge is completed now, but I believe until like July 15th, something like that, they will be announcing the winners of this challenge. Now speaking of RedStreams, we have a new RedStream which is coming out on July 4th at 5 PM Central European Summer Time, and this is what the official Cyberpunk Twitter actually said. RedStreams is coming. This time we sit down with our friend from Embody Audio and Cole Walder, our engineering director, management and audio, to discuss the audio experience of Immersive Gamepack for Cyberpunk 2077. Speaking of the future, we also had another Answer Red podcast hosted by Pawel Burza and Sebastian Kalemba, and in episode 7 they had Pawel Sasko, who is currently associate game director for Orion, and Dan Hernberg, who is acting executive producer for the Boston CDPR studio, where they're making Orion, hence Cyberpunk sequel. This one was important, being that these two are now in the core of making the next Cyberpunk game, especially with Dan, who is one of the people setting up the studio, so they touched a bit on how Orion is doing. Keep in mind, they didn't go into details, but you get a general framework of what their idea is behind, making that studio in Boston and developing the game from that studio. One of the topics was the difference between, for example, Poles, Europeans and Americans in terms of small things like, for example, how manhole covers look, how trash cans look, how they're placed, small details, culturally wise, and especially, related to the social aspect of just different continents and people living in them, so they can actually make a more authentic game, or a more authentic cyberpunk experience. That's where they also said that in the future they want Cyberpunk, as I said, to look more American in some way, which some news media outlets I think misinterpreted in some sense a bit, but it's mostly around designing things in the game in an authentic way, being that Night City is, a city set on the west coast of the US anyway, so you're just trying to find out little nuances and things which will make those details stand out in Night City, being that, again, it's the United States, so obviously some things are going to be different, some little details which basically make up the world itself. They also talked more about the future of Cyberpunk and how they want to keep this momentum and really upgrade on the experience in the future. Sadly, we will have to wait a while until this is out. First off, we have The Witcher. I will leave a link to this podcast down below. It's definitely a must watch or listen if you just want to feel how the studio works now in general, especially the Boston one. Now, in the more business side of CDPR, there are some interesting news with CDPR releasing this statement. Poland's economic cooperation with the United States has significantly deepened in the recent years, as evidenced by the steadily increased rate figures. In 2023, the trade turnover between Poland and the US reached a historic high, with Polish exports surpassing $11.8 billion. We are very pleased to report that Projekt contributed to this impressive performance, accounting for 1.75% of Poland's exports to the United States in 2023. This is honestly wild when you think about just how much games count into an export today. Of course, yes, in the US that's okay, being that US exports a lot of games, towards everywhere else. But to have, for example, Poland, or especially getting a stronger export of games into the US from Europe, is kind of great. And to be honest, just coming from one studio or one corporation is wild. And also, Adam Medowski and Michał Nowakowski, joint CEOs of CD Projekt Red Group, had an interview with Forbes in Poland, or Forbes Polska, where they said, "We don't want to be custodians of the past achievements. We have an ambition to do more and continue to surprise." Now, sadly, the rest of the actual article is behind a paywall. So yeah, This is nice to hear. I mean, to be honest, I just hope that the future releases will be smooth and that, this time organizational and production wise, they won't be running into issues of previous development, mistakes. And, that lessons have been learned. But so far, at least, what the general vibe from the company is that things fell into place and, they're looking smooth as of right now. And for the time being, that is all I have for this video. Of course, we still have that internal QA, so as soon as something, is announced about it, I will talk about it on this channel. So if you enjoy this, click that like button and, to support the channel in that way, and tell me down below in the comments, what do you think about all of this? Also join our community on Twitter and Discord, and huge thanks to my current Patreon supporters. In general as well, thank you for the support recently. I am glad you enjoy watching my content, and this is LKM signing out. Stay classy as always, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye bye.